Well, howdy, free people of the Rocky Mountain region. This is Brandon from freestatecolorado.com with your weekly news roundup for November 5th, 2023. Nearly every week, I take a look at some headlines, news stories, and articles from across our great state. And as always, you can find the links at freestatecolorado.com. Lots of weekly roundups nearly every week this year, as well as some interviews and resources for the Liberty community here in Colorado. Of course, we have a very important election this year, as always. Vote no on Proposition HH, no on II. And also, I'd ask you to sign up for the newsletter from freestatecolorado.com. We've got a lot planned for 2024, and I hope you can be a part of it. All right, well, let's see what's in the headlines this week. Let's start off with this dailycamera.com article. CU Boulder Department statement sparks fear and anger in Jewish community. So, of course, the Israel-Palestinian issue is drawing a lot of attention globally, but here at home in our college campuses in Colorado, we're seeing some fighting, some people protesting, a lot of division, unfortunately. Ethnic Studies Department removes its Palestine support statement. This is from November 3rd, 2023. A statement of support for Palestine made by the Ethnic Studies Department at the University of Colorado Boulder sparked anger and fear in some members of the Jewish community on campus. The statement inaccurately claimed the Israeli people were responsible for the October 7th music festival attack and that Israel is committing war crimes and genocide against the Palestinian people. It continued to discuss settler colonialism and made calls for action against Israel without mentioning Hamas or the many Israeli lives lost in the October 7th attack. So the statement was published on October 22nd and has since been removed from the department's website and replaced with a new one. CU Boulder Chancellor Phil DeStefano recognized the department's decision to remove the statement on October 30th. So, very interesting to see here at our college campuses in Colorado. So much outcry, so much division on this issue. Very interesting. I didn't necessarily expect it when this whole thing happened, but I guess it's not too surprising for people who've been paying attention to what's going on in our schools, in our universities in Colorado. So keep an eye on that. We'll talk about a couple other things here with it. A Denver Gazette article from Jimmy Sengenberger, just put out 3 hours ago today on November 5th. CU Boulder, a safe haven for anti-Semitism. Wow, pretty strong, strong language there from Jimmy. Just wanted to at least bring this up because it was related and had just come out. So, get to the meat of the article here. Immediately following the barbaric terrorist attacks by Hamas against Israel on October 7th, Students for Justice in Palestine emerged on campus, promoting an October 12th Day of Resistance protest with a flyer depicting a paraglider, which was the way Hamas swooped jihadists in for their deadly sneak attack. Protesters chanted from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, a phrase historically used to call for the complete eradication of Israel. Wow. So, pretty interesting to get more of the details here from Jimmy Sengenberger. That Daily Camera article did not give too much information or details to it. A couple more things here. Let's be clear. This was an explicit endorsement of Hamas's brutality to achieve liberation, yet CU's student-led Cultural Events Board reportedly shared it on social media. Quote, for all of the Jewish students here, our lives in the past few weeks have really turned upside down because of our connection to Israel and our Jewish heritage, said Yehuda Levi, a 21-year-old junior. There's multiple anti-Semitic incidents reported by these individuals. A man threatened Jewish students to their faces that he would kill them. Yikes. A student provided a hateful letter intended for Israeli soldiers and their families. So it's pretty sad to see, but I think this potential escalation of violence among college groups is something that can't be ignored. And it's something that needs to be really stopped. And I would say if you're whether you're a Jewish person or not, it's a good time to get a firearm and learn how to defend yourself. So that's what's going on in CU. Let's take a look at some of the other colleges here in Colorado. So this is in Denver. No surprise there. Palestine supporters targeting Denver's Golda Meir house with anti-Israel protests from October 27th to 2023, westward.com. Demonstrators have been calling for an end to U.S. aid to Israel, urging Denver colleges to support Palestine and bashing the Golda Meir house. This is something I didn't really like I said, I didn't expect to see it. Maybe I'm just out of touch with what's going on in college campuses, but kind of sad stuff here. The Golda Meir House Museum, which sits on Denver's Aurora campus and honors Israel's first female prime minister and lauded Iron Lady, has become an epicenter for pro-Palestine demonstrations in recent weeks, with a national Walkout for Gaza rally there on Wednesday, October 25th. Burn in Hell, a pro-Palestinian supporter can be heard shouting on video captured by Westward. Rot in hell, the man says, directing his statements at two people who are standing silently in front of the museum and holding the national flag of Israel. Paul Nelson Jr., an organizer with Students for a Democratic Society, helped lead the rally and was also an MC for a demonstration that went down to the House on October 11th. He tells Westward that SDS has teamed up with several other groups, including the Muslim Student Association and Middle Eastern Student Association, for the pro-Palestine efforts, and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. So interesting to see what's going on at CU in Boulder, but then also CU Denver is located on Aurora campus, as well as Metro State University. Let's see if this plays any audio here. So absolutely wild. Looking at Twitter here, there's been a couple posts. People have posted a person calling for this is apparently a student at Aurora campus in Denver. This has gotten a million views on Twitter. And unfortunately, we could see some of that audio of those people screaming at the Golda Meir house. So interesting stuff, not good stuff, but it's something to be aware of, something to be knowledgeable about that's happening in our communities. And there you go. Well, let's go ahead and move on. Got a couple stories about Proposition HH to talk about. So from the denverpest.com, editorial by the great Douglas Bruce. Douglas Bruce, of course, one of the primary authors of the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, wrote an editorial coming out against Proposition HH. No surprise there. Proposition HH, as he says, would undermine TABOR revenue limits with this initiative. So guest commentary from October 30th, 2023. After 30 years of success, legislative leftists still hate the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, TABOR, amendment. Voters have rejected past schemes to surrender our right to vote on runaway government growth, but politicians won't leave us alone. Douglas Bruce brings up an amazing point here. Part of the biggest benefits of TABOR, of the Taxpayers Bill of Rights, is that it makes the politicians, makes the legislators ask the voters, ask the people for tax increases for growing the size of government. That's why the politicians hate it so much. They want to grow the size of the government to no end, but thankfully, Taxpayer Bill of Rights prevents them from doing so. In 2022, they reluctantly sent us a TABOR refund of excess state revenue, $750 per person, $1,500 for joint filers, but the resolve is still never again. On the last day of this year's session, a one-party cabal put on the ballot their 48-page scam for a new cap that will exponentially increase state spending. Dozens of conservative legislators walked out. Legislative hearings, last minute. Public input, limited. Respect for the Constitution, none. Respect for the rule of law, none. A constitutional mandate like TABOR cannot legally be challenged by a regular bill like Senate Bill 303 to put Proposition HH on the ballot. No election to change TABOR can be held in an off year like 2023. You know that. Politicians count on their politically appointed judges, whose salaries they set, to look the other way on this gross illegality of violating the Constitution by holding a TABOR refund theft vote this fall. Proposition HH's legislative larceny teases voters with one refund paid out equally to all taxpayers in 2024. Then the law reduces TABOR refunds every year with a new higher spending limit. Politicians can continue this new, much higher TABOR cap forever, with no more voting, no more elections, no more control of pork barrel spending. Why? Politicians don't want to live on a budget. They want a blank check. When Congress overspends by trillions of dollars, numbers not heard until recently, when inflation has returned, it is no time for Colorado to follow the worst habit of government: overspending. So you got to read the rest of this article here. Douglas Bruce, of course, is a powerhouse in Colorado politics in terms of what he's done to protect Colorado taxpayers. I mean, he has saved Colorado taxpayers millions, if not billions of dollars over the years and restricted the growth of government. Part of the reasons we have so much freedom in Colorado, so much economic prosperity, is because of Douglas Bruce and the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. Let's go ahead and move on. Another article here about Proposition HH. This one made it into Forbes. Wording of Colorado ballot measure is misleading. State board confirms. While most of the off-year election coverage has focused on the Virginia Senate elections and the gubernatorial contest in Louisiana, Kentucky, and Mississippi, early voting has already begun in Colorado on Proposition HH, a ballot measure that would weaken the nation's strongest spending cap and result in a higher overall tax burden for Colorado residents in the future. A recent decision by the state board in charge of setting ballot measure titles, however, suggests that Proposition HH, as currently worded on the Colorado ballot, is misleading to voters. Wow. Proposition HH, which was referred to the ballot by the Democratic-controlled state legislature, reduces property tax rates this year relative to current law, but increases the state tax burden in Colorado overall. That's because Proposition HH would allow a certain amount of revenue collected in excess of the state spending cap to be spent by local governments rather than refunded to taxpayers in accordance with the state's Taxpayer Bill of Rights, TABOR. TABOR is a 4-decade-old constitutional amendment that requires all state revenue collections beyond the rate of population growth plus inflation to be returned to taxpayers. TABOR also subjects all state tax hikes to voter approval. If voters approve Proposition HH this November, it will not reduce property taxes. Ben Murray, Fiscal Policy Center Director at the Independence Institute, a Denver-based think tank, wrote in National Review on October 20th. Its adoption would merely produce a slightly smaller increase. Polis offers voters this modicum of property tax relief on the condition that voters hand over billions of dollars in future tax refunds to the state government. Wow. So you got to read this article. It's very unfortunate that the state legislature is being so dishonest, so deceitful, and hopefully this is stopped at the ballot, and if not at the ballot, at a future lawsuit. Well, let's go ahead and move on. Got plenty of other stories to talk about this week. I thought this was interesting. This is something that can't fly under the radar. I think needs to be reported more often. The amount of data breaches, whether it's from the state government's health agencies, education agencies. It seems like every week people are getting letters in the mail from the state government agencies saying your data may have been exposed, your information is out there on the internet, on the dark web, quote unquote, and people have access to it because of these hacks, because of these data breaches at our government institutions that have so much of our information. So this is from the denvergazette.com from October 30th, 2023. Colorado Republican leaders call for inquiry into education data breach reporting delay. So not only was the data stolen and out on the internet for Colorado people, but it also, the reporting of it has been delayed and almost seems like it's been trying to cover it up. Colorado House Republican leaders on Monday called for an investigation into why Colorado's higher education agency allegedly failed to timely report a massive data breach this summer. In a 2-page letter hand-delivered to Governor Jared Polis and Attorney General Phil Weiser, 5 state representatives also urged an inquiry into why thousands potentially affected by the breach still have not yet been told individually as the law mandates. I am extremely concerned that the state took so long to notify the public of this breach and the failure to contact potentially impacted individuals in a timely manner appears to be in direct violation of the law, stated the letter from GOP leadership, a copy of which was provided to the Denver Gazette. The letter was signed by House Minority Leader Mike Lynch and Republican Reps Rose Puglisi, House Assistant Minority Leader Mary Bradfield of Colorado Springs, Don Wilson, Anthony Harstuck, Police office refused to comment on the letter because of Colorado Department of Higher Education's ongoing investigation into the breach. Weiser's office said it had not yet seen the letter. The request comes on the heels of a Gazette Denver report on Saturday that the Colorado Department of Higher Education, which oversees the state's post-secondary system, waited 8 weeks to notify the Attorney General's office about the data breach that affected thousands of records containing personal data going back 2 decades. State law requires the breach to be reported no later than 30 days after it's been discovered. So just want to touch on that real quick here. So records containing personal data going back over 2 decades. So Colorado Department of Higher Education has information for over 20 years, personal information of Colorado residents and students, and that information has gotten out there. The government cannot protect your data. The government collects your data and then it gets breached, gets leaked, gets out there. So be aware, people, of that this is going on, maybe more often than they want us to know about because they've delayed this reporting so much. What else are they covering up? What else are they holding back from us? Let's go ahead and move on here. This website, just so you know, printfriendly.com, is a good way to get around paywalls if you're unable to get into an article because you have to subscribe or sign up for something. So this is from denvergazette.com. Denver public school students walk out over district violent student policies. So we talked about this in previous weeks, but I didn't see a lot of media reporting over this. I mean, the reality is that Denver public schools, as well as schools across the state, have some dangerous students in them. And as we saw, Denver public schools cares more about keeping those kids in the classroom so they can get their taxpayer money through attendance records instead of protecting the well-being of the students. So it's not too surprising, unfortunately, but people need to be aware these schools do not care that much about your students' safety. Let's move through the article here. Scores of students walked out of Denver Martin Luther King Jr. High Early College in Northeast Denver Tuesday morning in protest over Denver Public Schools policies that allow students in trouble with the law to attend classes in person. The students left class at 11 a.m. and walked to E.V. Garrett Dennis campus. Accidentally deleted that there. Officials, however, released a statement through Scott Preble, a district spokesperson, who said in part, Denver Public Schools is committed to a safe environment. Students carrying homemade signs that said, "We demand safety," and "My voice matters," were flanked by Denver police flashing emergency lights on patrol cars. About a dozen honking student vehicles followed the marchers. "What do we want?" Marlene Laria Tapia, a 16-year-old junior, shouted into a bullhorn. "Safety," the crowd responded. "When do we want it?" Now. Tuesday's march marks at least the third student-led protest over campus violence this calendar year. "They don't feel safe," said Kimberly Grayson, a former principal who works in violence and prevention students services at University of Colorado Boulder. Over the past year, Grayson said she has received about a dozen calls, a handful since school started in August, from students concerned about their safety at DLMK. So very unfortunate, but it's something to be very aware of. There was another news story about a student in near Washington High School, I believe, that got stabbed. And this continues to happen in Denver schools. And it's something to be aware of. If possible, get your kids out of schools, out of government schools, get them into alternative schooling, homeschools, charter schools. And I think there's a time for school choice has never been more important. This is from Gazette.com, editorial from October 30th, 2023. Colorado should reverse business hostile policies. So, of course, we know that Denver legislature, the Denver City Council, as well as the state legislature, have put a lot of anti-business policies into practice, into law over the last few years, and it's really starting to hit hard for some of these small businesses and others who are looking to leave Colorado or not come here at all. Awe-inspiring landscapes, an enviable climate, and a diverse business community. These assets define Colorado. Of the three, businesses faced the least certain future. Despite the illusions of idealistic politicians, the state government has negligible control over temperatures, scenery, and cultural trends. Conversely, the state has absolute control over the regulatory climate that determines the future of our business community. Each granola store, high-tech aerospace firm, restaurant, bric-a-brac boutique, farm, ranch, retailer, resort, and service provider plays a key role in fueling Colorado's $386 billion gross domestic product. Business-friendly policies increase Colorado's velocity of currency. The speed at which buyers and sellers transact goes directly to the availability of goods, services, and accessible capital. Pro-business policies, typically involving reduced regulations, fuel growth in jobs and wages. They generate more revenue for government services. In every way imaginable, businesses play a key role in setting and maintaining Colorado's quality of life. That means everyone needs our economy to transact more with fewer regulatory obstructions. For years, our business climate impressed other states. Not so much anymore. There is little debate that the state's economy has been among the best in the country, but when we look closely at recent trends and data, the state's economic future is less certain, states the newly released Vision 2033 report by the Colorado Chamber of Commerce. The report reveals cause for concern. In the 2023 CNBC rankings of best states for business, Colorado ranks 11th, down 6 places from the 2018 ranking. Colorado's economy ranks 32nd this year, down from its top 10 ranking in 2018. Wow. Colorado's housing costs have risen 52% in the past 5 years, making the state a place of high risk and overhead for entrepreneurs and prospective employees. Colorado's cost of living ranks among the country's 50 and highest, a key factor in the state's employee shortage. Based on a chamber survey of 337 business leaders, 60% believe Colorado's economy is on the wrong trajectory. Two-thirds of business leaders say the state's business regulations are more burdensome than in other states where they do business. The past year has seen statewide job reductions in construction, trade, transport, utilities, and financial services. Colorado's growth in education and health services has slowed significantly compared to other states. The worker shortage has reached a critical juncture due largely to soaring cost of living factors caused by regulation. Colorado's education systems are disconnected from future workplace needs. So you can keep reading the rest of that article over at denvergazette.com. But I just wanted to point out that there's trends out there that can be reversed. There's a massive opportunity for the liberty community, for the pro-business community to get involved and make sure that these politicians are not penalizing businesses and pushing out these job creators and wealth creators out of our state. Let's go ahead and move on. From the coloradosun.com, November 1st, 2023. Short-term rental owners show up in force to oppose Colorado lawmakers' plan to tax their homes at a much higher rate. Colorado lawmakers got an earful Tuesday from short-term rental owners on proposal to classify many of their homes as commercial properties and impose a much higher tax rate. The legislation would roughly quadruple property taxes for tens of thousands of short-term rental homes in Colorado. It drew fiery testimony from more than 80 speakers at Tuesday's hearing of the Legislative Oversight Committee concerning tax policy, which voted to advance the bill to the full legislature in January. Wow, so that's going to be one to watch. The measure would classify homes that are rented for more than 90 days a year on a short-term basis, defined as less than a month per booking, as commercial lodging properties. The property tax assessment rate for lodging properties is 27.9%, compared with the 6.765% rate used this year for residential properties. More than 75 of the speakers voiced ardent opposition to the proposed law, an indication of the political hurdles the measure faces. The change, endorsed recently by Governor Jared Polis, of course, is meant to place short-term properties on level ground with hotels and motels and generate more money for schools and local districts, which are funded by property tax revenue. Yikes. Similar proposals to shift short-term rentals over to commercial tax rates have fizzled at the Capitol in recent years under pressure from short-term rental owners. But the bill comes as Colorado voters are casting ballots on Proposition HH, a 10-year property tax plan that taxes second and subsequent homes, many of which are used for short-term rentals at a higher rate than people's primary residences. There we go. Proposition HH is seen as a precursor to the classification change proposed under the bill considered Tuesday by the Oversight Committee concerning tax policy. And Polis' recent support for the idea means it has a real chance of passing in 2024. Well, there we go. We got to take a look at that going into 2024. I think it's really a bad idea, of course, to increase taxes at all. If you want to level the playing field with short-term property owners or short-term rental property owners like Airbnb owners in hotels or motels, lower the property taxes on motels and hotels. Let them lower their costs. Let them compete more fairly. All right, let's move on here. A couple more stories for the week. DailyCamera.com from November 1st, 2023. Broomfield City Council candidate compared to Nazis in edited campaign signs. Now, I just thought this was interesting. This is a work of political theater that drew ire from some people and applause from others. Edited version of Broomfield City Council candidate Heidi Henkel's campaign sign features Nazi imagery have been confiscated by police. Don't know why the police would confiscate them. I don't know what would be illegal about that. But of course, Heidi Henkel is one of the leaders of the anti-gun movement, one of the biggest anti-gun champions, one of the most authoritarian members of the Broomfield City Council. So it's not too surprising that members of the community would see her as an authoritarian based on Nazis of years past. The edited signs, bearing the same colors, font, and layout as the original design, read Hail Henkel in reference to a Nazi greeting and chant. The sign also edited Henkel's campaign logo into a single hand in a position similar to a Nazi salute. Henkel, the incumbent candidate in Ward 5, sent a campaign email last week stating that a friend messaged her in horror after seeing the sign on a median on 144th Street east of Shannon Drive. That is hilarious. So there you go. I know there's a lot going on, obviously, in the Jewish community right now, and nobody wants to upset them. But nonetheless, Heidi Henkel is an authoritarian who wants to take your guns away and transform Broomfield into downtown Denver. So let's move on. From KOAA.com. Interesting article here. We saw earlier, there's endless examples that the government can't protect you, right? Government can't protect you, can't protect your family, can't protect your business, can't protect your data, right? So this is just another example of how, you can't rely on law enforcement, you can't rely on the state to help you out if your car is stolen. No one is coming to save you. You got to take personal responsibility for protecting yourself, your family, your vehicle. 4 Colorado Springs detectives tasked to find 2,300 stolen vehicles, some never investigated. Police tell News 5 investigates that motor vehicle theft jumped 13.5% since last year in the city. So there you go. You got 4 detectives to try and find 2,300 stolen vehicles. Good luck getting your car back. This is from November 2nd, 2023. Vehicles are being stolen at a higher rate this year than last year, reported missing from public parking lots, long busy streets, and even from people's driveways. And the areas they are targeting in Colorado Springs have changed as well. Police tell News 5 investigates that motor vehicle theft jumped 13.5% since last year in the city. Despite that increase, only 4 detectives are handling a caseload that has climbed well into the thousands. Posts on social media from frustrated drivers of stolen vehicles are not hard to find, and the posts describe how personal the loss can feel. Sharing images and details of a missing vehicle can sometimes help detectives locate it if tips are generated from the post, said Colorado Springs Police Lieutenant Mark Chacon. From January 1st through September 14th of this year, 2,338 vehicles were reported stolen. And of those, 1,704 cases are still open, according to police data. 19% of those are Kias and Hyundais, which have been stolen at a higher rate due to thieves' ability to dismantle a security feature in a video showing them how to do it, first posted by the infamous Kia Boys, which went viral on social media. Both companies have recall options for consumers available. So there you go. Your car gets stolen, you got 4 detectives trying to solve it and get it back for you. All right, let's move on. A couple more stories here. I hate to bring you a sad news, depressing news, but unfortunately, the reality of our situation here in Colorado needs to be discussed, cannot be ignored, and solutions are there. Solutions are there, and it's important for people to get involved, stand up, and do something about it. This is from KDVR.com, November 3rd, 2023. Homelessness in Denver up 58% since 2016. Yikes. Homelessness has increased by 58% in the Denver metro area over the last 7 years, according to an analysis by the Common Sense Institute. It's a top concern for Denverites and was officially declared an emergency shortly after the new mayor, Mike Johnson, took office. Since then, the city has been creating micro communities and converting hotels to create housing options as part of the mayor's plan to house 1,000 people by the end of the year. According to the Common Sense Institute of Colorado's report, there are thousands of people in need of shelter in the area. There are 9,065 people experiencing homelessness in the metro area, and 2,763 of them are without shelter. That is a 58% increase, according to the report, which says there were 5,728 experiencing homelessness in 2016. So it's very unfortunate. Homelessness continues to increase. 58% in the last 7 years is absolutely wild, and it's very unfortunate, but there needs to be a solution. There needs to be a way to address this issue sooner rather than later. Let's move on. Of course, you probably heard this in the news. Colorado Republican Ken Buck's retirement announcement arrived gradually, then suddenly. November 3rd, 2023, coloradopolitics.com. So Ken Buck has resigned. Congressional District 4 is mostly Weld County, northeastern Colorado, so it's expected to be a Republican stronghold going into 2024. So it'll be very interesting to see who replaces him. Of course, Ken Buck got a lot of ire, a lot of anger from his constituents for his failure to support Jim Jordan for Speaker of the House, as well as, backing down from some of the conservative principles that he was supposed to be representing. Colorado will send a fresh face to Washington after next year's election. Before this week, there was a chance the state's House delegation would see some turnover in the wake of the 2024 election. 2 seats as rated as toss-ups and could change hands, but Republican Ken Buck's announcement on November 1st that he won't seek a 6th term ensured at least one congressional newcomer will be taking the oath of office on January 3rd, 2025. It will be the 4th cycle in a row that a newcomer will join Colorado's ranks of lower chamber legislators who boast tenures ranging from near rookie status to seasoned veterans. That's a remarkable stretch with at least some adjustment each cycle for a state whose House delegation has seemed relatively stable over the decades. Still to be determined whether Republican Lauren Boebert and Democrat Yadira Caraveo will return with the next crop of lawmakers representing Colorado's 8 congressional districts. So very interesting to see what happens there. It'll be very interesting to see who replaces Ken Buck, who's going to run, who's involved, who's the biggest voices out there. Prior to his announcement, Buck has already drawn 2 primary challengers from his right flank, Weld County Council member Trent Leasley and first-time candidate Justin Schreiber. The next day, they were joined by nonprofit head, filmmaker, and former talk radio host Deborah Flora, who ran last year for U.S. Senate. A slew of others might run, including current and former state lawmakers, county commissioners, and a handful of candidates who came up short in their last campaigns. Some of those on the fluid roster are State Rep. Richard Holtorf of Akron, House Minority Leader Mike Lynch of Wellington, former State Senator Tom Wines of Castle Rock, Logan County Commissioner Jerry Sonnenberg, Douglas County Commissioners Abe Layden and Laura Thomas, former University of Colorado Regent Heidi Ganal, former 18th Judicial District Attorney George Brockler, and former Fort Collins City Councilman Gino Campana. So it'll be very interesting to see who makes a cut. Definitely here at Free State Colorado, this is going to be a huge news story going into 2024. We're going to be keeping an eye on and giving you a lot of information on. So there we go. Let's move on. A couple more stories here. A lot in the news this week. This is going to be from the ColoradoSun.com. I thought this was interesting, kind of unfortunate, I guess, in a way. That news story is having trouble loading. Let's jump over to DenverGazette.com. Denver Gazette guessed what the fastest growing form of education in Colorado is right now. This is from November 4th, 2023. So, some good news. Wanted to kind of leave you some positive story here that homeschooling is on the upswing. Homeschooling is growing here in Colorado and nationally. And as we saw how dangerous, how toxic Colorado schools Colorado government schools are, it's really important to have some alternatives. Homeschooling is now America's fastest growing form of education. The number of kids who are homeschooled has grown 51% in the last 6 years, while private school enrollment has grown 7%, and public school enrollment has dropped 4%, according to a post analysis of data in states with comparable enrollment figures. More kids are homeschooled now than attend Catholic schools. The Post estimates that there are now between 1.9 million and 2.7 million homeschooled children in the United States. For comparison's sake, about 3.7 million students attended charter schools in the fall of 2021, according to the most recent federal data. One school district in Colorado, District 49 in Colorado Springs, has seen a 280% increase in homeschooled students since 2017. Overall, Colorado has seen a 17% increase in homeschooled kids in the past 6 years. Such statistics have been hard to come by because of inconsistent reporting requirements and record keeping by school districts. So the Washington Post collected and analyzed 6 years of enrollment homeschooling registration figures from nearly 7,000 school districts, conducted more than 100 interviews, and took a national poll of homeschool parents. What did they find driving this trend? The pandemic, for one. When we all brought our kids home for school for a year or two, turns out many never went back. Remote learning has made homeschool much more attractive and easier to do. Concerns about school shootings, bullying, and the general quality of the public school environment were among the top reasons for homeschooling cited by parents in the Post poll. Many also feared the intrusion of politics into public education. So great news. There's definitely a lot out there, a lot of resources for homeschool parents. And I think the trend for alternative schooling, as I mentioned earlier, is continuing to grow. But last thing I want to talk to you about this week is from meetup.com. We have a meetup going on in Fort Collins. I hope you can make it. It's this Wednesday, November 8th. That's our Liberty on the Rocks, Northern Colorado chapter. We get together, discuss philosophy, economics. You can talk politics if you want. It's not a political organization. It's really just a way for people to have community, to have some conversations, to get together and maybe share a drink, make some new friends, maybe find a new business opportunity, just build some community, build some culture. Let's have some fun. Come on up to the Social, one of the best bars in Fort Collins, definitely one of my favorites, at 7 p.m. Wednesday, November 8th. We get together to discuss the philosophy of liberty, free markets, and self-ownership. Look for me or the table with a large box of books. We do it twice a month. Not always at this location, but every second and fourth Wednesday of the month, Liberty on the Rocks of Northern Colorado meets for great beer and great discussion. We're rotating through a variety of bars and breweries. You can find all the information on Meetup. Join the Meetup. Search for Northern Colorado Liberty on the Rocks and sign up so you get informed of all the future meetups. I mean, twice a month, you have an amazing opportunity if you're in Northern Colorado to get together, make some new friends, and let's talk. All right. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you joining me this week. Hope you enjoy this nice weather while we have it. Winter and fall is on the way. But take care. Best wishes. And vote no on Proposition HH. I have a lot of information or a lot of video articles and more coming up after the election. Thank you.